Hi everybody, Chris Titley here and welcome to Scoreboard.
This episode is powered by Swyftx, Australia's top-rated crypto exchange and proudly homegrown, just like many of the athletes and business leaders we feature on Scoreboard.
Hi, it's Chris Titley here, and on today's episode of Scoreboard, the podcast, I'm joined by Bree Walker. Bree, great to have you on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Finally, we've been able to match it up.
A bit of back and forth with very busy schedules on your front now. Where am I joining you from today?
Currently, I'm based in Calgary in Canada.
Rightio. Right, we're sitting here on Wednesday, the 17th of September at 7 a.m. in Melbourne, but it is Tuesday, your time. How is your September been and how's your 2025 been?
2025, it has been busy. It's, leading up to an Olympic year, it is always busy. I wasn't home in Australia for too long, but longer than I normally was. So that just meant a lot of media engagement, catching up with friends and family, and then getting stuck into training. And then in July, I came over to Calgary and I've been here ever since. And training's been going really great, been getting in some solid work over the last few months. And yeah, feeling like I'm in really good physical and mental shape to be able to go and attack for the season.
Fantastic. Now, Bree, for the listeners out there, how would you describe yourself? What do you describe yourself when people say, hey, Bree, what do you do?
I just say that I'm a bobsledder, and that normally comes with a follow-up question of what is bobsleigh? Or it comes with, oh, that's strange for an Australian to do. But then I obviously probably reference the movie Cool Runnings, and then people are like, oh yeah, I've seen that. I'm like, yeah, that's what I do for a living. So yeah, and I get a lot of unique conversations when people ask what I do for a living, and which, I obviously love to teach people about the sport and what I do and how fun it is. And then it gets people interested, and often they will message me on, social media apps and be like, oh, we're following you along now. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and then the follow-up question is like, wow, you must go fast.
Yeah, for sure. And or how fast do you go? And then, yeah, I normally respond the fastest I've gone is 140 kilometers an hour, which, most people can't really fathom going that fast, especially down an icy track.
Now, 140 kilometers an hour, but taking you back, you started on the track. You're an athlete running in multiple different events, I seem to recall. And if you type in your name in Google, there's heaps of stats on you and your athletics. Yeah. Does it take you back? You're going to talk about your career into bobsledding and how that began, but also taking you back to your love of sport.
Yeah, no, I did a lot of sports as a kid, especially in school. But my main sport was track and field, and I was a 400-meter runner that then progressed to 400-meter hurdles because my coach back in the day, he kind of tricked me. He was like, when I first came to him, I told him I was a 100-meter hurdler and a 400-meter runner, and he goes, so you're a 400-meter hurdler. I said, no, 400 meters is hard enough. I don't need to be going over 10 hurdles. And he goes, oh, okay. And then as the years progressed, he said, Bree, maybe you should try a 400-meter hurdles to strengthen your 400s. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll give that a go. And I remember after doing my first 400-meter hurdle race, I was like, oh, I actually like that much better than the 400 meters because I found that each hurdle, it was distracting. Like I was focused on the next hurdle and then the next hurdle and the next hurdle, and you kind of didn't really feel the pain of the 400 meters. So, yeah, that's why I then decided to switch over to 400-meter hurdles. Was quite successful, especially in my first years of doing it. Became state champion for Victoria. Went on to nationals. I then received a full track and field scholarship to the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. Won a few medals over there. And then, but I was like, always kind of riddled with injury towards the end of my athletic career, and that kind of, put a big dampener on things. And I kind of felt that the fire for track and field was slowly kind of dying. But my dream to represent Australia on the world stage and at the Olympic Games was very much alive. And so just, through moments watching other athletes achieve their dreams at the Olympics, I I kind of had the thought that, oh, maybe I could switch sports and achieve my dream that way. So I just Googled whether we had an Australian bobsleigh team. And at the time we didn't, but they were revamping the team for the 2018 Olympics. So I just signed up to the Talent ID camp, went along to the camp, and they were like, yep, you have all the great attributes to become a good bobsledder. Would you like to go and learn how to drive a bobsleigh? And so, yeah, a month later, I was off to Whistler in Canada to learn how to drive a bobsleigh.
Wow. And your first impressions of bobsleigh, jumping in one and going down your first time?
Going down my first time, a few people have asked me this question over the years, and I honestly can't really remember it. It was like such a blur. I remember thinking that I was going so fast, but I've looked back at timesheets over the last few years, and I was only going like 90 kilometers an hour. And if I'm going 90 kilometers an hour today, we call off the training because that's just far too slow. But I remember feeling so fast. I don't really remember what happened, but I do remember going down a bobsleigh track the first time from the top, because when you first begin to slide down a new track, especially when you're learning, you start lower down so you don't have to go through so many corners. So the first time I started from the top of the Whistler track, and I went down and I successfully crossed the line and I got to the top, and I just was like, yeah, this sport is for me, and this is how I am going to achieve my dream of representing Australia on the world stage and at the Olympic Games.
And then the technical side of it, as well as the physical side of it, and you talk about training now and you're feeling in a good spot. How much training do you spend on the actual technical versus physical? And then I'm going to throw in the mental side of things as well.
Yeah. It's all pretty much an even split, I would say. In the summer, it's more physical because we're training for the push start. And so all my dry land training is weights and track running, and then also doing lots of push training. And that's why I'm here based in Calgary, because they have a push track facility, and that's something that we don't have in Australia. So in the summer, that's probably what it's a lot of my training is dedicated towards. But I do a lot of mindset training. So I would say in the summer, a good part of my training like away from the gym and the track is on my mindset. But then when we go on season, I would say then it becomes an even third split. You've got your physical training where we have to go to the gyms and go to the tracks that we have available. Sometimes they're not available, and we have to do weights in like dirty, cold garages or out on car parks. And then I have my mindset stuff where I work with my sports psychs and my mentors to be able to really hone in on what I need to focus for on that week during my race and everything like that. And then we go to the track, and then that's the technical side of things where I'm walking down a track and my coach and I are talking about how I want to drive that track, what line I want to take, how I then get that line with the sled. And yeah, it's that then becomes a lot of it intertwines with the mindset stuff, because then I do a lot of visualization to be able to visualize myself going down the track, visualize what I do while I'm going down the track. And then obviously you have to go and then do the training sessions. And people are surprised when I say we only get sometimes 2 or 3 training runs per day. People think that we can go down the track as many times as you want, but we normally get an hour session, and we can maybe fit in 3, sometimes 4 runs, but even often it's just 2 runs and then that's it. And then we've got to get ready for the race. So yeah, that's why mindset training and visualization becomes so important, because then you can get more reps going down the track and when you're really good at visualization.
Yeah, interesting. The number of athletes that I've talked to on Scoreboard have had sports psychs and visualization and mindset tools and tips have been quite paramount, I suppose, in terms of performance. I'm curious to know some of the things that you do to sort of get the best out of yourself, irrespective of the result.
Yeah, I do lots of different things. I do it's kind of hard to explain because it kind of there's like a starting point, and then I've kind of over the years developed that to my own, like for myself.
Your own
And
personal kind of way of
yeah,
doing things in life, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'll Lydia Lassler is a mentor of mine, and she really taught me the art of visualization and how important mindset is. But so what we will often do is we will do mindset sessions and visualization sessions where she will talk me through, like walk me through a meditation. And then and I will be visualizing what I'm doing. I'm preparing for my race. I'm going through my warm up. I've gone down the track. I've come back up. I've thought of the things that I need to correct for my second run, and then I will go down again. And so then that's how, like, what I do kind of on a regular basis. But it's taken a lot for me to be able to master that skill of visualization. And we did a lot of stuff, back 5 years ago when we started working together in order for me to be able to build the skill of visualization. And then obviously, as time has gone on, I know what I need to focus on when it comes to racing. Sometimes, because everyone's human, that you drift away from those key cues and pointers. And so that's why I keep in touch with my sports psych and Lydia, because when I'm out there and everything's so busy and you kind of get caught up in the moment, they will be my grounding conversations where they remind me what I need to focus on for this next race and kind of bring me back to center. So yeah, that's pretty much what, for me, like what I do. It is really hard to explain, actually. I often haven't had people ask me what I do, but yeah, it's taken years and years of developing.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, because it's always interesting around different techniques. And I had a cricket on recently, and we're talking about visualization, and she had to kind of reverse her psych around don't get out, don't hit it here, don't hit it here, to the positive sort of thing, like let the
Yeah. Yep.
bowler come and see ball, hit ball, etc. Versus that relationship with visualization. We've had Dale Morris on, one of the great AFL players for the Western Bulldogs, talking about how he would walk 2 hours before the game, every game, same home ground, knows the ground intimately, but visualize. And it's
Yeah.
really kind of powerful. And I suppose in terms of sharing that, the intertwinement with goal setting. Are you a goal setter?
Oh, I'm a huge goal setter. I always have been. I was never really taught it when I was younger, but I always had goals all over my room. I would write, like when I was doing track, I would write numbers of, times that I wanted on my mirror in lipstick. And it was just something that I just innately did. And then when I got older and I started, reading self-help books and then talking to athletes who have achieved the things that I want to, they would then talk about what they did to, set goals and step through it in order to be able to achieve it. And I'm like, I do some of those things, but then I would add in those little gems that they had, and then that would just take everything to the next level. So yes, I'm a huge goal setter. It's a big part of, my mindset training and really mapping out how I'm going to achieve it, because that's that's a very key part of it. You can set a goal, but you can't just set a goal and leave it. You have to map out how you are going to achieve that goal and the steps you are going to take in order to be able to achieve it. So it's breaking it down, you would break it down into, other mini goals, and then you'd go again and you break it down, those mini goals down into micro goals. And then you just got to go through and take it step by step, because I think sometimes if you set a big goal and you have the big goal out there, it just seems like it's humongous. But I was taught very early on from one of my track coaches, like the way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And so then that's through breaking down a goal, that's how you slowly chip away at your elephant.
Yeah, that's a great one. And in terms of the time frames around those goals, do you have a journal or something which you kind of progress and then you connect them? or is it 3 years, 5 years, 10? Is the big, hairy, audacious goal overarching that you go back to? And I'm just curious around the time frame setting of those goals.
Sure. I mean, when I first started this Olympic cycle, the goal was to win an Olympic medal at the next Olympics. So yeah, that was, your big elephant.
4-year goal, right? From
Yeah,
the other,
and
yep.
And so then it was like, okay, like that's the 4-year goal. So what do you need to do in order to be able to achieve that 4-year goal? Well, you need to break it down into year goals. And then you need to break those year goals down into monthly goals. And then you need to break those monthly goals down into weekly goals. And then you can break it down even further into daily goals. And so for me, it's I would never focus on the big goal and just be like, oh, that's what I'm doing, because then you forget about all the steps in order to be able to get there. And I think we've done really well over the last 3 seasons in order to be able to step our way closer to achieving that 4-year goal. We've achieved a lot and we haven't achieved some, but that's okay. I think in not achieving goals, you build resilience, and then also you learn a lot of lessons. And I certainly have learned a lot of lessons. Sometimes it's been really hard and heartbreaking, but in saying that, I think we're in a really good place, and we're like, I haven't felt this prepared for a season like I am feeling for this season. So yeah, I'm really happy where we're at.
That's fantastic. And do you journal?
Yes. Yeah. That journaling is a big part for me. It's not necessarily, for me, why I journal is just to get the noise out of my head, because, it's just something that I do at the end of a day. I'll take 5 minutes. It was a technique that my sports psych wanted me to implement. And it's just talking random BS, you just like, blah, 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 this is my day, this is what happened. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad. Sometimes there's absolutely nothing going on. And then all of a sudden you'll like start writing down different things and you're just like, well, that was weird. Why did that come out? But it came out, and now it's out of my head and I can go to sleep at night. So yeah, it's a way that I can have a little bit of a release. Like my sports psych and I call it letting off the gas, and you just let off the gas, so then you can relax and you can go to sleep at night.
I'm curious to know, Bree, when people say that you're a bobsledder and you're going at 140 kilometres an hour, what your relationship with fear is.
Well, I also used to be a horse rider when I was really young, and I was the one that was always put on the little ponies that like had a lot of attitude. We didn't have like a bunch of money when I was younger, and so it wasn't like we were getting these top educated horses that were well behaved. My dad would go out there and he would source out a horse that he was like, yeah, I think Bree can handle it, and we can, train it up to be a pretty, well-behaved, well-trained horse. And so in the beginning, they were often like, they were rude and not doing what I would want them to do, and I would, get upset and cry, and Dad would just keep me going around and around in circles or over jumps or anything to try and get this horse well trained. And eventually we'd get them well trained, and often we would get them well trained to a point where we could sell them for quite good money, and then we would go again and we would find another little horse that was a big pain in the ass. But for me, I think that developed a lot of fearless energy. And when you're at the track and that the track is really fast, and, there's some people that are crashing during the day, they're the days that excite me, because I'm like, you got to go for it. Like, those are the days that you really like. It's like when Dad would put me on this little pony and it would be, not being well behaved. Like, that's like those days at the track, and you just you really have to step forward and go for it and attack, because if you defend and if you are submissive, then that's when the track bites you. So yeah, I get really excited by those moments. Don't get me wrong, there's days where you do get like fearful of certain things, especially if you've had previous bad experiences there. But then that's also part of my mindset training, is to be able to prepare my mind to be able to handle anything that comes my way. So yeah, it's definitely, it can be scary. It can be really dangerous. There's been lots of accidents in bobsleigh that, sends shivers down my spine. But if you know what you're doing, you have great coaching, and you respect the track that you're on, you usually have nothing to fear.
That's a great answer. I'm also curious to know, as an individual sport and then also sharing it with a partner, the two, how you go about managing your own skills, and your own mindset, etc. But then also jumping in with a mate of yours and going down as a pair of two, and how the dynamic works there.
Yeah, I mean, I love both events. I really love, obviously, competing in the mono. It's where I've had most of my success. But I think as a smaller nation in the sport, we've had a lot of success in the two-man, and I really enjoy sliding with my teammate Kiara. We make a great team, and it is honestly one of the best feelings to get to go down a track and cross the line and know that you and your teammate have produced such a great performance, because you get to celebrate with somebody, and so I absolutely love doing that. I also love it because you, on the days that you both know what's on the line and you both fired up for it, you can feel an energy between you and your teammate, and that just brings more fuel to the fire. And that's like one of the feelings that I crave in this sport.
So you're an individual runner, and then you're an individual with the mono, but then you're part of teamwork as well. And there is teams. It's Team Australia. It's your team, your crew, your coaches, etc. How do
Yes.
you find the concept of, like, you are part of a team, but you're also actually an individual?
I mean, I couldn't have achieved everything that I have in the monobob without my team. And I'm very, very, very selective with who I bring onto my team. It's taken many, many years in order to be able to, bring all the pieces of the puzzle together. But I think we have, we've made actually some changes this Olympic season, which you don't normally do to your team. Usually you try and find your team before Olympic year, and then you leave it set and you go forth. But we realized that we needed to make some changes in order to be able to achieve what we want to this season. And I think that we've found the pieces that we've needed for quite some time in order to be able to achieve our goals. So I'm really excited for this season. I'm really excited to see what these changes will bring to our team. But I am very, very selective with our team, because when you're traveling, especially with a small team such as ours, you're practically living with each other, 24/7. The dynamic has to be right, So yeah, it's very important for me to make sure that it's not only the right skill set the person brings, but also the right personality.
And then when it comes to equipment and the whiz-bang technology out there, do you keep abreast of all that? And in terms of, I suppose, trialing, it's pretty hard to trial, I'd imagine, because they're so expensive.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the monetary side of things, the technology side of things, and what you're doing to, I suppose, get a little bit of an advantage?
Yeah, we work on a pretty low budget, especially when we're comparing it to the bigger nations and the amount of money that they have and the technology they have, and they have access to. But for us, we just try and make the most of what we have and what we have access to, and then we just try and max it out to the best we can. The monobob is a little bit easier, and that's probably why I've had more success in the monobob, because all the sleds are standardized, so that it all comes from one manufacturer, that we can only make some small changes in to that sled, and then it comes down to your pushing ability and your driving ability. When it comes to the two-man, yes, there's different manufacturers out there, but we have a small budget, and so we can only work in a certain bracket of manufacturers. And then it's just a matter of getting those sleds and being able to set it up the best that we possibly can, so I can drive it down and as fast as I possibly can. So it does. The two-man has a lot more hurdles that we need to overcome compared to the monobob.
And Bree, are you, with modern day technology and AI and all that sort of stuff, are you a bit of a data nerd? Do you get lots of data points?
I kind of leave that up to my coach a little bit because I get a little bit obsessive with that kind of stuff. But, he will put, some of my results into graphs, and he will compare it with other athletes. For me, if I look at that stuff too much, I try and break it down, and I get a little bit obsessive. So I just say to him, you tell me where I need to improve and what I need to do, and I will go and do that. But don't get me wrong, I'm a big student of the sport. After every season, I will review each race. I will review how I went, how other athletes went, what they're doing in order to be able, if they've beaten me, what they did. If I've beaten them, what did I do better than them, so I can replicate it again next season. So then that's where I guess, I nerd out on.
Yeah, and then watching yourself, that's interesting in terms of feedback. How do you go? Are you one of those people which potentially was like, oh, just should have done that a bit better? Or now you're like, okay, I got it. I probably need to improve. Were you beating yourself up early as a kid, or where are you at now when you watch yourself and you're like, oh, I probably should have done a little bit better than that?
Sure. I think initially you think, especially if you've had a loss, or you didn't think you performed as well as you could, you kind of criticize yourself. But that's why I think it's important to watch other athletes, because then you can learn what they did better than you, and then take those learnings and apply them next time. Or you can watch it and be like, actually, I didn't do as bad as what I initially thought. And so then that's when you can say, calm down, Bree, you don't need to be so hard on yourself. But again, I like to make sure if I've made a mistake, I've learned from that mistake. I don't hold on to it, because that's not helpful. Learning from it is going to be helpful for the future. So yeah, I just try and max out my learning when it comes to reviews, and then be able to and I write notes down. So then when I'm at that track next time, I'll reflect on my notes that I've taken, and then be able to go on and apply that into the training and the racing at that track.
And then sharing the journey now with modern day social media, etc. How have you found that, and the support crew in and around you, people that are following your journey with updates, etc., and being a little bit transparent to the public, more so than probably a decade ago?
Yeah, I love doing it. I love sharing the journey. I think, sometimes it's really hard because I don't think people realize how much admin I have to do outside of my training, especially compared to other athletes. Along with my head coach, I pretty much book our whole season and plan out our whole season, what we want to do. And that requires many hours behind the laptop, searching locations in order for us to be able to find accommodation, and booking flights and trucks and everything that we need in order to be able to get around Europe for the season. So I sometimes feel like I would love to be able to share more, but in what I do share, I get a lot of really great responses. And I think a lot of people have been on the journey with me from the beginning and have seen how I've grown over the years and developed. And that's really special. I love receiving messages from people being like, oh, I've followed you, since 2018 when you didn't get to go to the Pyeongchang Olympics. And then now seeing you being at a constant medal contender and going towards these Olympics is just so inspiring. I like those messages, really mean a lot to me.
Oh, that's great. And then I suppose some messages when things don't go your way as well also probably mean a lot to you, that people that are true friends and whatnot follow you no matter what happens, right?
Yeah, definitely. Those are the messages that you need on those days. So yeah, I'm very grateful for those as well.
I'm curious to know about the logistics side of things, and you mentioned it, and not many people would know the logistics of it. You talked about trucks and transport. I was just thinking then out loud, I was like, how do you actually move the gear? How do you get it around, and where do you store it?
Yeah, so I've got all my equipment stored over in Germany at one of my sponsors. But then throughout the season we travel around in our big transporter. And we have our 2 sleds in there, and then also we will hire an extra car or a van in order to be able to hold our luggage and an extra thing. I am a serial overpacker, and so we need, my coach jokes that we need an extra car for Bree's luggage. But now we've got a pretty big team. Like we've got a team of 5. Like often we've just had a team of 3 or 4 on season, and so the extra person means there's a lot more baggage to be able to cart around. And so we have our team transporter, that's ours, but we then have to go and hire a car in order to be able to travel around. As time's gone on, and the more people that we have on the team, it allows Kiara and I to be able to fly certain places. So then, we're not stuck in a seat for 8 hours. We're only on a plane for 2 maybe, and then we can go and be at a hotel and start recovering and gearing up for the next week of training and racing. So that's been an involvement because in the beginning I was driving everywhere and doing all, the heavy lifting and moving and trucking and going on ferries and all this kind of stuff. But as we've gotten to, I guess, the pointy end and competing for medals at the top level, it requires, different logistics, let's just say.
Are there any stories you want to share around some logistic nightmares where you're just sitting in an airport lounge or something, or an airport, and you're just going, my flight's been cancelled, the snow's come in, we can't move, we're stuck, or something like that, or in a truck somewhere?
I'm very lucky to say, touch wood, that I haven't had anything at an airport. But one funny story was my teammate and I back in 2018-2019 season, we were driving back to my apartment because I was living in Frankfurt at the time, or I was living in Germany, like in a town just outside of Frankfurt at the time. And I saw that our the petrol gas meter was getting pretty low, but we still had a little bit more room in there. I'm like, nah, we can make it home. We can do this. Anyway, so we're driving along and we're about 5 minutes from my apartment, and then all of a sudden our car, like the van, just conks out and just starts rolling. And I was just like, oh my God, what's happened? And what actually happened was the gauge froze at this certain point because it was so cold outside. So we just had to pull over on the German Autobahn, and then we had to truck through like the bushes to get to like this other town in order to be able to get a little bit of gas in order to be able to come back, fill it up, to be able to then go to the petrol station to fill it up. And so I learned that lesson, like, even if you're 5 minutes away from your location and then your tank is low, just fill it up just in case, because you never know in those wintry conditions.
And on the side of the Autobahn with freezing conditions, were you like, this is living, this is why I do it?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were saying this is going to be a funny story one day, but at the time we were just like, oh my gosh, we've just, driven 8 hours and all we want to do is just get into a bed and, be done with the season. But no, we had one last adventure to go through, and now I can look back and laugh on it for sure. But
now you can look back and share the story on a podcast. How good that one day on memory. Now, as part of this podcast, we also ask our guests around their scoreboard moment, which is a moment in their life, which is a bit like a sliding doors moment. We were talking about this before. A moment in your life which is quite visual, and from that moment, life has changed. Bree, I'm curious to know what your scoreboard moment is.
Yeah, I would say, like thinking about it, I was thinking of a few moments, but I would probably say that the real moment for me where, my life changed and just everything changed for me was not going to the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics as an athlete, but going as a spectator. And I sat on the sidelines and I just had to watch the race unfold in front of me. But that was such a big learning moment for me. And I watched how the athletes competed and prepared, and I was lucky enough to have back access to seeing what the environment was like at the Olympics there. And I also got to experience an Olympics as a spectator, because when you're there competing, you're there to compete. You're not there to go and, watch other people compete. And so that was really exciting for me. It was my first Olympics that I had ever been to live. But I remember after the race, I went around to the back where all the athletes were. And meanwhile, like may I point out, like at that time, I was 2 years into the sport. I was a complete rookie. Nobody had achieved nothing in the sport really, other than qualifying Australia for the Olympics through the continental position, which I guess I should probably explain. Back then, there was continental positions to encourage more nations to be able to compete in the sport, and so I achieved, along with my team, a continental position for Australia. And so I've got back access, and an athlete from the US, Alana Myers-Taylor, she came up to me and she just won silver. And she saw, and I've never talked to her before, and she saw me and she had obviously heard about my story and really felt for me. And she came up to me and she took her medal off and she handed it to me. And she's like, you will win one of these one day. She got a picture with me and I have a picture with her in the medal. And for me, that was a really big moment because, you know, she had no idea, like she didn't really need to know who I was and what my ambitions were, but she took the time. I remember she broke away from the media to come over and say hello to me. And so for me, that was a really big moment, and that solidified for me that I was like, all right, I'm going to go out there and do everything I possibly can in order to be able to make the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. So for me, that I went back to Australia. I decided to move to Germany. I didn't speak any German. I had joined a squad over there, and that was probably some of the best training I've ever done. Was those first 3 months of me living in Germany and just getting so immersed in their culture and you know, their attitude towards training, and it really just was a switch for me in order to be able to know what it was like to train at that high level. So, yeah, you know, I've had many moments since then. Coming fifth at the last Olympics was a big moment for me because it showed what I was capable of achieving, you know. It wasn't just like a thought in my mind. I knew, I'm like, yes, I can actually compete with these athletes at you know, at the high level. And, you know, I was disappointed because I didn't win a medal because that was obviously my goal to at those Olympics. But it was the first time I'd ever tried to win a medal at an Olympic Games. And so for me, it was, okay, that was my first attempt. Let's go on and have a second one. So that's what the last 4 years has been geared towards.
Yeah, and a big coming up in February next year, 2026. Can't wait for that. Another question I ask my guests is about their all-time favourite sporting moment, something you could watch 1,000 times over that doesn't include yourself.
That would be Kathy Freeman winning the 400 at the Sydney Olympics. I could watch that again and again.
Yes, and it's the 25-year anniversary right now, this week. There's lots of things going on in Sydney this week with lots of reminiscing of that particular games. I saw the swimmers out there yesterday, and Kathy has been out there again talking about it and back to Stadium Australia to reminisce 25 years, how time flies. And we've got 2032 in Brisbane as well in the Summer Olympics. Now, as part of our sponsorship with Swyftx, which is Australia's most trusted cryptocurrency platform with over 1.2 million users in Australia and New Zealand, we do a little section called the Bucket List, which is part of their, well, it sort of coincides with their new TVC campaign, Where Can Crypto Take You? The bucket list is a question I ask around a sporting event live that you haven't attended thus far in and amongst your busy schedule, probably not in the imminent future, but in the next few months, etc. But after that, what is your bucket list, Bree Walker?
I think it would be to be a spectator at the Summer Olympics, and in particular the track and field, because I just look forward to watching the track and field when the Olympics comes around every 4 years so much. And so I think to be able to witness that live would be something else. And so maybe it'll be LA, but it definitely will be Brisbane. So that is something I definitely want to tick off my bucket list.
You've got two shots of that coming up, LA and Brisbane, as you mentioned. A huge Olympic schedule, and obviously the Winter Olympics in 2026 for you personally. Now, we've got one final question, and that is, Bree, taking you back to your teenage years and you're running around the track and you're doing good times and you're potentially in the state champs, etc. And now you've ended up here where you are now and in the zone of focusing on your your goal coming up. I'm curious to know what advice you'd give to that Bree back then who was sitting here in 2025 looking at going, I want to be Olympian one day, or I want to represent Australia one day.
I would just remind her to keep having fun because, when I was having fun and happy, I was always fast. I am always fast, when I'm having fun with it, when I'm happy and not just happy, like smiley happy. It's just like, it's a complete joy deep inside. That's when I'm fast. And so that's been a big part of, this season, this prep leading towards this season is making sure that I'm enjoying my life outside of being an athlete. That's something that I've learned over the last few years, that I have to have a full cup, because training and doing my sport only can fill my cup up so much. I need other things in my life in order to be able to completely fill my cup up. So yeah, for me, I would just say to her, keep having fun. And if you aren't having fun, do something in order to be able to change that. You need to keep working hard. You need to keep being very dedicated to your sport, no doubt, but make sure you're having fun while you're doing it.
I love that. I love the way that and the radiance and not just talking as well, and having fun. And I've talked about this for a number of athletes around taking it back to why you do it, taking it back to the fun levels. You're having fun now?
Yeah, so much fun. Like I got a great team, and we have fun on the daily, and so yeah, it's a big part for us because on the days where it's like freezing cold and you're lugging around like heavy sleds, and there may be track delays and all that kind of stuff. If you can't have a moment of fun, those days can become so depressing and long. So yeah, you have fun with my competitors, have fun with my team, have fun with myself. There can be times when bobsleigh can be very frustrating because you're trying to do something, but you only have less than half a second in order to be able to, achieve like some of the steers that we need to. And so if you are unable to do it in one run or two runs, like that can be quite frustrating because you only have 3 runs throughout a day. So sometimes I'm just like, you know what, let's just have some fun with it. Or my coach will be like, I bet you can't do that. I bet you a coffee that you can't do that. And I'm like, all right, you want to make that bet? Let's go. And then that's how we can bring the fun back into it. And usually if he bets a coffee or bets a piece of cake, I can normally go off and achieve it. So it's that's how you keep it light, you keep it fun. That's how we do it anyways. And that's really important to me.
Bree Walker, thank you so much for sharing your story on Scoreboard, the podcast today. I really do appreciate in and amongst the Olympic cycle, as you mentioned, getting closer towards the end of the year, taking your time from Calgary to have a chat about your life story, the ups and downs, some of the tips of high performance, some of the tips of having fun, which I think is a very important message for people out there listening. I wish you all the best coming up. Looking forward to supporting and following your progress where I can, and looking forward to following you into the next year, also with the Winter Olympics coming up.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks for having me.